like personal responsibility, I mean like responsibility, your ability to choose your response to your circumstances, your situation, your job, your career. I mean, anyone listening to this is already like an empowered chick who believes in personal responsibility and is already making a dent with her business. So I don't even need to preach that. But like anyone who might find their way into this and is like, I hate my job. Like, that's on you, homies. You know, like you have it within you to change that. What's up, ladies, and welcome to another episode of the Millionaire Girls Club podcast. I'm Jill Stanton, and I am so excited about my guest today. She's the creator of Soul School, has been named one of Origin Magazine's top 100 creatives, changing the damn world, has starred in the documentaries The Abundance Factor and Rise Up, is the author of 50 Ways to Yay, is the co-founder of the Bridge Experience with her hubby and partner in Shine, Preston Smiles, is the mom to a toddler and 2 twins, and is the closest thing you could get to a walking, talking ray of sunshine. She's a dear friend of mine and an absolute powerhouse. So chicks, help me give it up for Alexi Panos. What's up, friend?
Thank you. What an amazing intro. My goodness.
I am so excited that you are my first ever guest on MGC. I could not think of anyone better to start this off with. And just thank you so much for being here. So before we get into it, you are quite possibly the hands down, like one of my happiest friends I know.
Wow.
You are like a walking, talking warm hug. Have you always been so high vibe and so happy?
I have. I'm kind of, because of a lot of childhood trauma, quite honestly, I was like the fixer in my family. And so I was the one who was always kind of mitigating all the turmoil and dissonance that was happening in my family. And I quite like it. It's a survival strategy that I've had since I was young, but I dig it and it feels good. And it doesn't mean I'm like overlooking all of my own stuff that happens in my life. I get to face off of that too. Yeah, life is really what we make of it. And sometimes I'm on the bathroom floor crying like a puddle. And sometimes I'm really happy. But the majority, I would say, I'm finding the silver lining in life.
I love that. And I appreciate you being so candid about that. How do you process those kind of dark days and balance them against the light days? Because for me, I'm like, I constantly have to remind myself, especially as I step into this new side of my business and life, like that's contrast, right? Like you can't have the highs without the downs. And but sometimes people think they shouldn't have the contrast, right? That it should all be so good. So how do you process that? Because I know you've got a lot going on as well.
Oh yeah. And it's very much what you just said. Like it's not being in resistance to the dark. It's not being in resistance to the downs or the turmoil or the fight with my husband. Like it's going, okay, this is here for me. It's here to teach me something. It's here to reveal something for me. Okay, how do I want to be with this? First, I'm going to feel it. I'm going to allow my body to experience all the feels. And then once I'm over that, now I'm going to process it up here in my brain, right? And that's when I take all the tools that I have in personal development and essentially apply it to my life. It's knowing that there are gifts and beauty in all the seasons of life, and that winter and fall are so necessary for the abundance of spring and summer. That context alone has changed how I experience my lows.
Good for you, man. I love that too. That's such a great analogy. Do you have like a process for how you process it? Or do you just, because it sounds like there's not a lot of like self-judgment in that, right? Like
there's not. So I would say that's probably the first step, if I had to like put it into a structure, is no judgment. And then really thinking about like what part of my wounded self, like the self is actually all these fragmented parts, and it becomes our personality. And then we say, oh, this is just who I am. But truly who we are is just a segment of this family of parts within us. And they're all survival strategies that we've had since we were young, based off of things that we've gone through or things that we've witnessed. I really kind of like welcome that part of myself in. It's like, okay, right now, this is my little girl who feels abandoned, who pushes away and shuts down and armors up when I feel like I'm going to get hurt. So I'm going to love on her for a little bit, because that's all she needs. She just needs to feel seen and heard. I'm going to love on her. And then I'm going to come to my partner or come to whoever and say, hey, I'm taking responsibility for the fact that I'm like closing down emotionally right now. And what I need from you to support me in this is X, Y, and Z. And it's literally like, feel it in the body, love on that part of yourself that's in the psyche and then bring it to the person that you're being with and do it responsibly, which is not always easy to do.
Yeah, big time. And is your trigger like how you feel in your body, like physically? Because I noticed for myself, I've like trained myself to recognize like certain triggers. Like if my heart's starting to speed up or if my shoulders are up near my ears, I'm typically like, I feel a bit stressed, guys.
Yes. I've gotten to know my triggers very well. My throat closes up, my shoulders rise. I tend to like close in on myself. Like literally my heart becomes closed because my body closes in on it. So when I start to feel those bodily triggers, because my brain can override and talk myself out of a lot. But when I catch my body doing that, I'm like, wait a second. Pay attention, mama. There's something else going on here. And we can't just keep plowing through our day because this is going to catch up to us.
And how have you used that in your business? Because I would think, especially you had said that you had some trauma in your past and in your childhood and whatnot. Like, how did you kind of move past that to start your business? I know that like for me, myself, any hardships or experiences that I had that have kind of still lingered around in my adult life, especially as I start to lean into doing MGC, like, oh, it's coming up with like reckless abandon, just like the mind chatter I've been experiencing is just a whole new experience in like loving on myself, releasing it, like also noticing and observing it. And I definitely want to get into like the practice and design concept you talk about so deeply, but how has that served you? And also like, how have you had to move past that in your business as you start to, you know, from the start of your business to where you guys are at now? Like, it seems like you've got such a good momentum and harmony.
It's interesting because one of my survival strategies is repression. So what's interesting about in my 20s, I really just kind of repressed and suppressed all the things that I had been through and became super successful in what I was doing at the time, almost as a way to prove to myself that I was okay. You know, it's like that was one of my strategies was be really successful, be independent, don't rely on anybody. So it actually supported my success, but it wasn't until I actually started looking at what I had repressed, which was in my late 20s. I was like, oh, this is not actually serving me because I'm not actually really connecting with people. There's this like giant wall and gap between me and everybody else in my life. And if I ever want a real relationship, if I ever want a family, if I ever want like deep and meaningful friendships, I got to let that wall down. So that's when the real work started. And what's interesting is that work essentially became the work I do now with people all over the world. So it's ultimately been the greatest gift, my traumas, because it's brought me through my own healing and it's brought that healing and support to others everywhere around the world. So it's been great. And again, like I said, as it comes up, as I continue to up level in my business and in my family and all the things, those parts of ourselves are always going to chime in and be like, wait a second, it's not safe. We don't know this. We haven't been here yet. We haven't made more than X amount of money. Like, are we sure we can do this? And that's where it's like, okay, breathe. Let's go into the work. Let's see where we have to go within ourselves in order to truly surpass this upper limit. And it's a process.
And for people who kind of, you know, who have dealt with trauma in their life, capital T, small t, whatever it is, and unconsciously or consciously use it as a way to kind of hold themselves back, how would you walk them through that? Like, how could they start the process of acknowledging it first? I'm such a big believer that awareness is the first step. Yes. And becoming aware of it and how it's showing up in their lives and what they're making it mean, and then releasing it so that they can move past it, or of course use it to serve the world once they've healed it. You know, like what would you say to that person who's kind of struggling with where you've been?
Well, awareness really is the first step, and compassion, you know, and the big thing I see with so many people is that they're like, oh, well, I've been through stuff, but it's not as bad as what you've been through or what so-and-so's been through. And they compare their traumas and their childhood to somebody else and kind of minimize what they've been through. And what I remind all my students and my friends is that any trauma on the body is trauma on the body. Any moment of feeling unsafe or unseen or unheard is considered trauma. And whether you consider it a lowercase t or capital T, your body doesn't know the difference between big or little. It just says, it's not safe. I need to do something to protect myself. And That's a really important thing to get, is that your trauma is valid. It's valid, even if it's just the fact that you were in the car singing at the height of your voice and your mom turned around because she's having a stressful day and she's like, can you please shut up? That could be a trauma. Literally, that could mean that you close and shut down your voice for the rest of your life, because in this moment of feeling so free and express, the person you love the most said, shut up. That's a trauma. And yes, it's small, but your body goes, oh, not safe to express. Shut down the vocal cords. So I really that's the first thing, is compassion. And then the second thing I really want to say is that we can process it until the cows come home in our brain, right? We're really good at that. We're really good at all this psychoanalysis and what does it mean? And who do I need to be in order to step out of that identity? Yes, yes, yes. But until we process it in the body, we're not going to actually heal it. And this is where somatic work, this is the work I do with my husband. This is where somatic work changed my life. It's where I recognize the most sustainable and deep change in my cellular system, because my body had a pattern in it of closing during certain triggers. And until I practiced opening my body while those triggers were happening, I couldn't create a new pattern. So you literally have to notice what triggers the close, what triggers the conversation, what triggers the shutdown, and then go, okay, now what's happening in my body? Oh, my shoulders are going up. My heart's closing. I'm shying away. I'm closing my voice. I'm shrinking. And then notice when that trigger comes up again, go, okay, body, let's open. Put your shoulders back. Open your heart up. Open your throat up. Even dropping your jaw. Breathing into your belly. It's a somatic practice that's so simple, but it will change your life, because when we're in survival, we cut off our breathing. It's fight, flight, freeze. And that response gets us nowhere, because it shuts off all of our brain's capabilities for rational thought. So we have to open the body first, drop into the body and go, okay, now what? Now what? And that over and over again creates a new pattern of opening when the trigger happens.
Damn, that's powerful. And as you're talking through this, as you're talking, it can be little things. And I remember, I think you and I have talked about this in the past over many of our chats, but I really dealt with a strong and long season of bullying, and just, really what I deemed as quite terrifying and unsafe and humiliating. And, I remember I had 40 chicks surround me in my car and wouldn't let me move. Right. And I had 2 girlfriends in the car and they would not say a peep, which I understand. It was a very scary situation. Right. But in that moment, I've never felt more alone and humiliated in my entire life. And now as I step out into a brand where the intention is to serve women,
yes, girl. Trigger.
Yeah. I've had to really speak to that young 16-year-old version of me, being I've got you, man. I'll never let that happen to you again. And you're fully safe. And we aren't who we used to be. Yes. Right? That scared little girl who cowered and never spoke up for herself, which is so funny given how outspoken I am now. But maybe that's how that came about.
Yeah, probably.
And just really watching and observing that stuff that's come up for me. Yeah. Because you're so right. It could be even the smallest things, and our brain's ding, I'm never going to do this, or this means that about me. And learning how to unwire that, or acknowledge and move past it, release it, I feel is what helps you go to the next level.
Totally. And especially even things like procrastination. Procrastination is essentially a survival strategy for your brain to go, hey, we're about to enter something that's going to trigger all this old stuff, right? So don't do it yet. You're not ready yet. Maybe you need to do X, Y, and Z first. And so I really just commend you knowing what you're stepping into with this new brand and knowing what you've been through, because that is a deep trauma. Your body's first of all, women are not safe, right?
Yeah, totally.
Second of all, they'll humiliate you. Not only are they not safe, but they're going to throw salt in the wound while they're at it. And the ones that are supposed to be there to protect you will abandon you when things get rough.
Oh, shit. I didn't even realize that third one.
Yo, you are working with, and you're still pushing through. And for anyone listening or watching, like, that is the work. That's the work. Like, can you say, I see you and I acknowledge you and I'm going to love on you. And we're going to prove that the story is different now.
I love that.
That's it. And it doesn't mean it's going to be an easy ride, right?
Oh, no. It's been all the feels. Like my poor friend Kate here in Puerto Rico, Kate Erickson, and my other girlfriend, Allison Prince, they've just been like the ultimate sounding boards for me when I'm like, hi, can I talk out another feel I'm having? Like, just torturing them with going through all my stuff. But they've been the most amazing support system. And even when I first had the idea for MGC, which was like early 2019, and I told you about it, like, that's how long I've been sitting on it because I've been so scared about it. So it's just wild working through that. To totally shift gears though, you seem to have a lot of harmony in your life. That's one thing I've always appreciated about you is, I mean, our sons are, or at least your oldest son and my son are 2 weeks apart, King and Kai.
The two bears.
And you and Preston always seem to have a lot of harmony in your life. You seem to have a lot of harmony in your life. You seem to like not really, at least on the outside, or at least the layers of you that I know, you don't seem to beat yourself up a lot, right? Like I remember when you had King in the beginning and then got pregnant with your twins, you were like, I'm just going to like ease out some of the things I was doing to make space. And like, I'm not worried about it. I know that, you know, when I release things that no longer serve me or things that do not feel aligned with this season of my life, more comes in. How do you work through that? Like, how did you get to that place? What was this?
A lot of
combo is about processing. I feel
honestly, like I was almost the opposite of that for so long in my life. Like I stressed out about everything. I was a perfectionist. Like it was never enough. I was the overachiever. My plate was always full. And then I would go to find a bigger plate and fill that plate. And I just like, honestly, I actually hit adrenal burnout, like an actual burnout where all my hormones flatlined and like literally like there was a skull and bones at the bottom of the chart. And I was like 2 ticks away from the skull and bones. So I was like, oh, wow. Okay. That's important to see.
Maybe I should tune into this.
Right. This might be important to look at. So honestly, that was my wake up call. You know, that was realizing like, okay, I can keep plowing through life and like doing this thing and more. But at what cost, number one? And I always ask myself that question, like, yes, I could take this interview or take this speaking gig, but at what cost? Because there's always a cost for everything. And I make sure that that cost works with my goals and what I say matters to me. So that's number one. Number two, I truly trust that everything is perfect and I am abundant as fuck. Like I truly trust.
Yeah.
Like I believe that. It's not even like, oh, you know, you have to have faith. It's like, no, that's a knowing in my body. Like based on results, I can create anything. I can make anything successful. I know I can do it. So I don't need to prove that to myself anymore. So now that I'm kind of over that and like needing to prove myself to whoever, really ultimately myself, it's like, okay, like how do I want to enjoy life? How do I want to play? How do I want to intentionally design every single moment, every single day, every single project I do so that it actually feels really fucking good in my body? Yeah. Like that matters to me now. And especially with 3 kids, like 3 under 3 nonetheless, like girl, I mean, you know,
it's the fuck.
It's a lot, you know, and my energy is so, it is what it is, right? Like my energy is vast and limitless, and I'm also tired sometimes. So I got to be really careful about how I spend my energy and where I put it. And so, for instance, one of the things that I've intentionally designed right now is taking a very large step back from social media and Instagram in particular, because it's like, no, like I don't need to be posting all the time. I don't need to be sharing every detail of my life. Like absolutely not. At what cost? Because it's taking me away from what actually matters to me. So that gets to be put on pause for a little bit. And I'm okay with that. And I think a lot of people guilt themselves of like, I should be doing this. I should be doing this.
Totally.
And I did this for so long. Like wherever I was.
Shooting on yourself.
Yeah. I was literally shooting on myself for where I wasn't. Even if where I was where I was supposed to be, I was in a million other places going, but I should be doing this. I should be and I was never fully anywhere because I was always everywhere, you know?
That's big though. And how did you and Preston like sit down and figure this out together? Like, have you guys created this harmony together? Or is it kind of like you come to the table each with what you guys want and where you see your visions going, and then like figure out a like middle ground that serves your family and your marriage? Like, how do you navigate that? Because you both have a lot going on. He has his brand. He's hitting his stride. Well, he's been hitting his stride for a while, but he's doing big things. You're often doing big things. You have all these tiny humans. You know, you have a marriage to take care of. You just moved states. Like, there's a few things going on.
Honestly, we came to the table. I want to say it was probably back in. It was right before we were pregnant with Kingston, so that must have been 2017. Mm-hmm. And we came to the table and we really started going, okay, our business is growing, our brand is growing, the requests are growing, like more people are trying to reach us and touch us than ever before. What's the point of this? Like, what's the outcome? What do we actually desire? And so we got really clear about our desire, and we got really clear about when would we feel successful, right? Because for people like Preston and I, that carrot dangling in front of us could be a forever thing, right? Because we love life and we're so insatiable with life. But it's important to define when you reach that metric of success. And we picked a number. We said, okay, let's pick a number that when we earn this collectively, then we'll feel like, okay, we've made it to the extent that we're working towards right now. And then we can kind of relax ourselves a little bit. And we hit that number very quickly. The minute we declared it, it was like within 6 months we hit it. And again, that's how powerful we are. It's not that Preston and I are special. It's just that we got hyper-focused on what we actually desired. And we created that. And then once we created that, we came back to the table and said, okay, now that we have this thing out of our systems of trying to prove that we can do it to ourselves, now what? And that's when we started saying, okay, we want to make space for children. We want to like really start having more fun, because for 10 years we were both like head down, work. And we just wanted to have more fun. We wanted to play more. We wanted to connect more with people. We wanted to go out more and like do dance lessons and get back into music and just play with life. And so, yeah, it was an intentional design together, but also really taking into consideration what he needed as his masculine. Like, the more kids you have, and this is, I don't know if it's just us, but the more kids we had, the more his masculine provider turned on, where it's like, I need to provide more for this family. I need to like build bigger. And it's like, I'm going to honor that, right? Yes. I'll honor, I'll support it. And the more kids I have, the more my feminine turns on. And it's like, I want to be in the flow of life. I want to be creative. I want to be hands-on. I want to nurture. And that doesn't just mean being a mom. It means doing projects in my business that feel and fill those values.
That's so big, especially because I noticed as I became a mom, my intention is to be more present. That was always my number one thing. And I've realized that for me, that comes with a lot of help, right? Yeah. Like I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to be present. I'm going to work half days. And then that started and I was like, I hate half days. I don't hate half days, but I hate half days and like immediately going into momming because it's a very like jarring switch for me.
It is, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so giving myself grace around that, that was probably my biggest, I was actually talking about this with a couple girlfriends last night and they were saying like, what was one of your biggest breakthroughs of 2020? And I was like, where do I start? But
where shall we
one of the, yeah, there was a lot, but I said like, it has to be that I became much more gentle with myself around the support I desire. I'm a big believer in having childcare if that's what you want. Like for me, it is. I'm a much better mom when I have space. When I do not have space for myself and to do things that matter to me, I am very like on edge. I get like really feisty with Josh and like, you know, I'll get feisty with Kai and I just don't want to show up like that for him because he just wants to be loved. Right? Like he's just like, what's the problem, bro? Like I'm just trying to play with dinosaurs. Totally.
Trying to color some cars. That's all.
You need to calm the fuck down. I'm just playing with blue over here. So.
That's right.
But I realized like the ticket to that was giving myself grace and permission to want and invest in childcare. To give myself space so I can.
That is so important. And I love that you're bringing this up because again, this is what designing your life intentionally is really all about. It's what does presence mean for you? And for you, presence means, and it's for me too, like I'm co-signing this, like presence for us means that we have support enough so that we have enough time to fill our cup. So that when we do come to mamahood and parenthood, we're so full, we're overflowing that we can actually really be present and not resent our kids, not be somewhere else in our brains, like, oh, I need to be doing X, Y, and Z for my business. I'm with you there. And I think so many moms, like mom guilt is so real.
So real, man. So real.
And so many moms guilt themselves. And honestly, that's one of the reasons Preston and I moved to Austin, was not only for the tax savings and the fact that like it hits our financial planning and design that we're doing, but also the fact that we want to live in a village type community. And so we literally enrolled all of our friends who have kids or have kids on the way to move into the same neighborhood where we are building our house. Why? Because we believe in the village mentality. We believe that we're supposed to be like open arms, have your kids come over, you guys take a break, we'll switch out next week, versus like we're in a silo and like we don't see any other humans. And that's not normal for us, and it doesn't work for us. So I love that you said that. And
that's the exact reason we want to be in Puerto Rico. Like that's why it like slowly chips away at our like, well, that's a heavy thing to say. It chips away at our soul, but like it slightly devastates us that immigration isn't open, because we want to move here so badly, because it is exactly that. It is a giant community of entrepreneurs with kids who have similar values, and everyone wants, and they have parties and music class and beach days and, you know, rainforest walks. And I want my kid around those kids. I want to interact with those parents who have similar values, who are on doing big things, building wealth, like creating cool lives for their kids. And like even one of the women here, she's starting, I think I told you about her, Heidi, but she's starting a school.
Yes, you did tell me about her.
And it's so just, cool. I was with her last night and just like listening to her vision. And she's like, I'm running focus groups. And it's so funny because I'm like, this would exactly be my response to this. And she's like, and I want to know, like, what do you guys think about this design and this curriculum? And they're like, it's all great. Open up.
Like, just start.
Please, just let us in. And so like having access to those kind of elevated experiences for your kids are so important to Josh and I, and being around people who have similar values and appreciate that kind of thing. I so agree with that. Like not operating completely isolated, especially if anything this year has taught us is like how damaging that isolation can be for 100%. Kids, families, everybody. Couples, business owners, all the people in the world.
All the people. And I can hear some people listening to this going, oh, that must be nice. You know, it must be nice because you guys have the funds to do that. But I want to remind you, like, there's so many people in my community, I'm sure you could say the same, that aren't necessarily balling out of control with their finances, but they make it happen. Like, for instance, one of our closest friends literally decided that he's done playing the whole game. He's done. And so he sold all his stuff. He got a beautiful like Mercedes camper van, and he's traveling the States right now, surfing all over the States, like all over the coast. And it's like, design your life how you want to design it. Like the only thing holding you back is you. And any excuse you have, there's a solution to it. You just have to be bigger than that story, you know?
Man, I couldn't agree more. And the minute I hear must be nice for you because you blah, 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 is a complete abdication of your own personal responsibility.
100%.
And I get so much kickback on that, and I don't give a shit because it's so true. It's so true. You are 100%. And like personal responsibility, I mean like responsibility, your ability to choose your response to your circumstances, your situation, your job, your career. I mean, anyone listening to this is already like an empowered chick who believes in personal responsibility and is already making a dent with her business. So I don't even need to preach that. But like anyone who might find their way into this and is like, I hate my job. Like, that's on you, homies. You know, like you have it within you to change that. Yeah. That's why I feel like none of my 9-to-5 friends want to hang out with me anymore, because they're like, I hate my job. And I'm like, you know, you could change that, right?
Right. You know, we could do something about that, right? I started this whole thing called Screw the 9-to-5. I don't know if you've heard of it. But
I've kind of had it for a lot of years, if you haven't noticed.
But that's the thing. Like, people say must be nice, but if you truly knew either of our stories, you know that we were in a position at some point where we said, oh man, must be nice. Like where we
Yes.
could have looked at somebody living this life and gone, must it be nice? But instead we said, well, how'd they do it? And we just
Yes.
got curious.
How can
and
I
then
do
we
it?
took the step and then another step and another step. And here we are, however many years later, living the life of our dreams because we chose it. We consciously chose it.
All of our paths were not linear. Like my path, like I started like 2 web shows, and then I was a social media manager, and all throughout that I was a bartender, and I was just saving money so that I could go all in on something without being like, what am I going to do for money? And I created a runway. Like it is absolutely possible. And I was just hearing, I was listening, is it Dan Sullivan who says this? I'm listening. I'm like deep into the Dan Sullivan work right now.
He's great.
And I'm listening to him and Benjamin Hardy's book, Who Not How. And they're always saying like, your job is what you're paid for. Your calling is what you're made for. I think that's Dan Sullivan. I don't want to misquote it, but if you have something that is like within you, and it won't leave you alone, and you just have this like niggle that you want something better, it's on you to take messy action to make that happen. And I know that the women who listen to this have already made it happen, but I always reinforce that because one of my favorite quotes is, if it's desired by you, it's destined for you. You just need to get out of your own damn way to make it happen. And you talk about this concept that I really wanted to go into today as we start to wrap this up, or not start to wrap it up because I want to jam on this, but you know what I mean? And you talk about practice and design. And I feel like this is so perfect for talking about intentionally creating what you want to experience and the life that just lights your life on fire, your heart on fire. What is practice and design? And how can women use it to take their already badass life to a whole other level where they have, they 10x their wealth, their connections, their impact, they have more fun, they make more money. How can we use practice and design?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is we got to start design first, because if you don't have a direction, you don't have a path, and you're just literally going to go on the path that's most comfortable and has the least amount of resistance. That's how we're built as human beings. And it's awesome because that's what made us survive to this point. But it's not going to have you break through to that next level. So if you're hungry for that next level, whether it's money, relationships, love, you name it, fun, play, joy, pleasure, whatever, you got to get uncomfortable. And it's so funny. Like one of my coaches says this. He's like, if you're in the practice and the practice doesn't feel edgy and uncomfortable and like you want to run, you're actually just reinforcing your old habits. If it feels easy, you're reinforcing your old habits, which means you're reinforcing your old identity, which means you're not really going anywhere. You're mentally masturbating and getting off on some new concept, which can be fun. But if you're not feeling uncomfortable, you're not actually applying it yet. And that really landed for me in so many ways, right? Because the more I practice and the more I'm a student of the work and growth and all of that, the more I find myself at my edge and sometimes at my knees going, I don't want this, not this hard. Can it be a little easier? Right. So design is so important because it gives us that focus, and all it takes is a few questions and just taking inventory of your life. What feels really shitty in my life right now? What feels like a burden? What feels like a weight that I've been carrying? Write it. What feels awesome? What do I aspire to do? What do I wish I had time for? Write it. What are the biggest lessons I've learned for the past 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year? Write it down. Take all that information and go, okay, based on all of this, what actually matters? If I get to the end of my life and I'm 95 years old, what am I going to be so thrilled that I focused my life on, that I pointed my life towards? And what am I going to be really fucking pissed that I wasted time on, right? Think about that. That's so important because we often, we're just in this illusion of time, which yes, we have all the time in the world, and also time is finite in the human form, and we never know when our time is up. So we might as well start living our best life now. You know what I'm saying? So designing that and knowing what that thing is for you is so important. And then setting your entire life up. And I'm talking about how you wake up in the morning, where you wake up in the morning. It is not by chance that you and I both just moved to a new place. It's because we are designing and intentionally looking at our lives. Yes. You said, I want to wake up in an environment that makes me feel a certain way. And I said the same thing. So we moved our families and we did it. It's that's just how it works. get clear and then get into practice, get into action. And you said something that I want to really like circle back on. You said messy action, right? You said, you know, the women listening to this are already in messy action, they're already making it happen. Hell yes. And I'm calling all of us forward because as women, we can do all the things. First of all, we're superheroes. We're amazing. If you don't know that by now, I'm just going to reinforce that, right?
Now you know.
Now you know. If you don't know, now you know. But the other thing that holds us back because we can do all the things is we continue to do all the things instead of the things that actually really matter. Because we feel this like inner sense of obligation of like, yeah, but I need to be doing this over here for my family. But I need to be doing this over here for my clients. And we have all of these obligations that don't feel good. And it doesn't mean that we have to get rid of all of them. It means that we have to get really clear on how we can either make that feel really juicy for us and really good, or delegate it to somebody else so that they can enjoy doing it. You know, so that's part one. Part two, messy action. So many women that I coach and consult in terms of business are so afraid to take messy action. And even though they may have taken messy action to get to the point at where they're at now, what I find is a lot of times when women hit the 6 and 7 figure mark, they're so afraid to get messy because they don't want to lose it, right?
Yes, man.
Yes. And it's like, I find myself repeating myself to all my consulting clients where I'm like, get messy, like share this. Why don't we know this about you? Why don't we see this reflected in your brand? Because they're so afraid. They work so hard to get to that point that now everything's controlled and perfect. And I don't want to make a misstep because I don't want to lose it. Yes. And the question is, why not just have more fun with it and let go of like how that's defining you? Because that's ultimately why we don't take messy action, because we're defined by our relationship looking a particular way, our business looking a particular way. But just play, like be more of yourself. And that's a question I ask all my clients, like how can you bring more of yourself to your brand, to your work, to your family, like the true self, the self that has yearning and desire and wants to say fucked up things and like that self, bring her to the party because she's what we're missing in society right now. 100%. And I feel like we're all starving for her, you know?
For sure. We all want real more now than ever, I'd say. Because we all feel like a bit limited, a bit censored, a bit like on edge. We don't want to say the wrong thing. You know, like people are calling people out left, right, and center. We're like, oh my God, I don't want that to happen to me. And it's almost like, I said this to my friend Allison the other day. I was like, fuck it. If it happens to me, I'm going to be like, hold my beer. Bring it. Because I refuse to like mute myself just to like not get called out. I refuse to do that. That feels very like triggering from like what I experienced in high school with women. Like I couldn't be myself because I didn't want to be a target. And I was like, I refuse to do that ever again. So I will bring the whole shebang to the party. You know, even if it feels so scary to kind of step out and be yourself, but it's also the most fulfilling thing. And it will allow you, I think it's the one thing that will allow you to accelerate in such an authentic and genuine and exciting way, because you're not trying to be something in order to create success, which never feels fulfilling anyways.
Ever. And that's the thing. It's like the paradox, right? The minute you truly embrace the thing you're most afraid of is the minute the entire thing takes off, because the minute you're yourself, you win the game. Like you're living your best life. The minute you can fully be yourself, fully self-express, fully in your play, fully in your joy, fully in your pain, you win. But if you're constantly trying to perfect your identity, if you're constantly trying to like nail it home the way you think you should do it, you're always going to feel insufficient because you're selling out on yourself. You're abandoning yourself, and you're going to look to the world to go, don't abandon me. Do you like me yet? Do you like me yet? Do you like me yet? And the world's going to maybe do it a little bit, but it's never what your soul needs. Your soul needs you to go, yo, I see you. Let's do this. Right. Yes. And the minute you do that, boom, everything takes off. And I would say that's one of the reasons why I love you so much. And I love your brand so much. I love what you do so much, because you do it as you, and you can feel it. And I would say that's why you've been successful, is because you've just been yourself.
I would say the exact same for you. Like, you're one of the most realist, most authentic, most honest people. That's why I love you so much. Like, the minute you and I connected in 2018, I was like, how do I get me more of this in my life? And I remember when you, me and P and the Bears met up in Toronto, and I came back to Josh because he was sick that day, or he'd thrown out his back, or whatever it was. And I was like, you missed the best day ever. Like, I am high right now off their energy. So I also want to like honor you for that, because I think that's how you light up the world as well. Because I've never known you to try and be something you're not. That's the thing I am so attracted to you for. But truly, it's the thing that like magnetizes the world to you, is that you are who you are. And that's just so fucking powerful. So thank you so much for being here, being my first guest, being my friend.
Yes, all the things. I'm so grateful.
Being such a fierce ass powerhouse. I'm just so grateful to have you in my world. And thank you for sharing all of this with everyone. Where can people connect with you further?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, I've got a podcast called Unleashed. Check it out. This beautiful woman is about to be on there as well. So you can hear our episode on there. But lots of good stuff, lots of real raw conversations about just living your best life and unleashing the fullest expression of you. You can also follow me on Instagram at Alexi Panos. I'm not on there a lot, but when I am, it's pretty awesome.
But when I am, I drop the heat.
Yeah, I drop the heat. I bring it. So hang out for when that happens.
And grab your book and get into your world and sign up for emails and do all
as soon as we start doing like in-person stuff again, come to the bridge, come do extreme leadership. Those two things will rock your fucking socks off. And I promise you'll never experience yourself in the way that you'll experience yourself in that room.
Chills. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it in such a big way. Guys, if you're picking up what we are throwing down, we would absolutely love it if you would snap a pic of this episode, post it to your IG stories, tag me at the Millionaire Girls Club, tag Alexi at Alexi Panos, and let us know what was your biggest aha or takeaway, or what really resonated with you from this episode. We would love to see it so that we can create more of it. Thank you guys so much for sharing and tuning in and viewing and commenting and all the things. We appreciate it.
We love it.
We love it. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.
Bye, guys.